In this video, you will learn how to use the Zoom In feature, which is an alternative to using Zoom Box. The Zoom In option on the calculator allows you to get a clear picture of a graph when it is hard to determine what the function is doing. You can also use the Zoom In option to enhance the view for the function's intercepts, or where the two functions intersect. You will also learn to use the Zoom Previous option, which enables you to go back to the previous zoomed screen and then back to the current zoom screen. The next two examples illustrate the use of Zoom In and Zoom Previous. Note that the Zoom Out option is rarely used when viewing graphs, so it will not be covered in this video. So let's go to example 1. We would like to graph the function y equals 2x cubed minus 1.5 x squared. So let's input this. Y equals 2x raised to the third power subtract 1.5 x squared. And let's go ahead and make sure we're in the standard mode. So we'll hit zoom number 6 for standard, and it's going to graph it in the standard viewing window. Okay, so this is what our cubic function looks like right here. So again, it's a little bit unclear exactly what's happening right here. We know that this function definitely passes through the origin, because when x is equal to 0, y will equal to 0. So let's go ahead and zoom in on this area. So what we're going to do is we go to Zoom, and instead of using the Zoom Box, we're going to use number 2, the Zoom In feature. So we'll hit number 2. Then you can see this little dot here flashing. That's the cursor flashing. And we do want to see what's going on in this area. So if we just hit enter right there, it's going to zoom in on where that cursor is. So we hit enter. And here it gives us a little bit better view. So now we can see that it actually goes through the origin, comes down, and then goes back up again. Let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit closer. So let's select zoom and then zoom in again, so number 2. Now let's move the cursor up a little bit and then to the right. Okay, so let's zoom a little bit above this part of the graph right here. So now if we hit enter, now we get a little bit better view exactly what's happening. So it goes to the origin, and then it comes down, and then it crosses the x-axis right here. So here's the x-intercept right here. Okay, now if we go ahead and use the Zoom Previous function, we can go back to the previous zoomed screen and see exactly what the function looks like in a little bit bigger format. So let's go to Zoom, and then if we move over to Memory, and here it says Z Previous, that's the Zoom Previous function, so we hit enter, and it takes us to the previous screen. So then you can see a little bit larger picture of what this function is doing. Okay, so that's again a quick introduction of how to use the Zoom In and Zoom Previous options of the calculator. So let's go to example number 2. We will use example number 3 from the Zoom Box video. Recall that we wanted to approximate where the intersection points occur for the functions y equals the square root of 2x minus 5 and y equals 0.3x. So let's go ahead and clear this function out. So if we hit clear, and let's go to zoom and then standard number 6, and now we will go back to input these functions. So we hit y equals, the first one is the square root of 2x minus 5. So that's second function, the square root of 2x subtract 5. And then we will close the Radekind, and then we hit enter. That moves us down to the next line, and we can go ahead and input the second function, which is 0.3x. Now let's go ahead and graph this. Okay, so we do have an intersection point right here, and then remember that we can't see what's going on over here. So what we need to do is change the viewing window, because we know that these two functions are going to intersect somewhere out here. So if we go to Window, and we'll change the X max to 25, and that's the setting that we had before, and now we select Graph. Okay, so let's go ahead and zoom in first on this area right here. So if we hit zoom, and then number 2 for zoom in, here's the cursor flashing right there. So let's move that up, and then a little bit over to the left. And you can place the cursor in the vicinity of the area that you're interested in. Okay, so I'm going to place it right here, and we select enter. And here's a good picture of the first intersection point. So remember, we wanted to approximate where the intersection occurs. So if we move the cursor down, remember you can see how the X values and Y values change. So let's move it right on that intersection point. Let's move it over a little bit. So it looks like about right there. So the intersection point is occurring at approximately 2.75, and Y is equal to approximately 0.81. So the ordered pair is 2.75 and 0.81. So now let's go ahead and do the zoom previous. So let's get back to the previous window so we can see the second intersection point. So zoom and go to memory, and number 1 is Z previous. So hit number 1, or you can hit the enter button, it doesn't matter. So here's a picture of both the functions that you can see together, and now we're interested in this intersection point. So again, we're going to select zoom, and then number 2 for zoom in. So we'll move the cursor over to the right. You can kind of see it moving right there. Let's move it up to get a better view of it. Now if I hold down the arrow key, it'll move a little bit faster. So if I hold it down, see, it moves a little bit faster over, and then I can select it individually and get a little bit more accurate where I want to go, and then I move up. Okay, and that looks like a good place to put the cursor so we can view this area right here. So I select enter, and there we have the intersection point right here. So here's the cursor, so let's move it right on that intersection point. So let's hold down the left arrow key. Okay, and now let's move up. So about right there. So this second intersection point occurs at approximately 19.41, or approximately 19.42 when we round off, and 5.81 when we round off. Okay, so the ordered pair is 19.42 and 5.81. Now, if we want to go back to the previous window to see the full view of both functions, we would go zoom, and then memory, and zoom previous, so I hit enter. Okay, now if you want to go back to the zoom that we just had previously, we would hit zoom, and then go to memory and previous, and this takes you back to the intersection point that we zoomed on a little bit ago. So it'll go back and forth between only one screen previous and one screen forward. Okay? Now I would like you to note that the zoom in feature is a faster way to zoom compared to zoom box. However, zoom box gives you better control because it allows you to choose the exact area that you want to zoom in on. So you'll have to decide what will work better for you, the zoom in or the zoom box feature. This concludes the video on the zoom in and zoom previous option of the calculator.